In the early Unix systems, etc was created just to store all the extra configuration files that didn't have a specific home. They just thought, let's make a new directory and call it etc, which literally meant etc. I know what you might think, yeah, a dustbin for the configuration files. Later on, this dustbin gained more power and became the official configuration directory. etc is where Linux keeps its configuration, which means not the code, not the data, just the configuration and the instructions. Today, etc stands for editable text configuration because at the end of the day, the files are mostly plain text. You can open them with simple editors like Nano or Vim. To understand this better, let's look at our family tree again. If the root is the grandfather of the system, which has all the permissions, then etc is the grandmother, which also has massive privileges, like choosing our house, name or address. But she has very strict boundaries. If you want the configuration and instruction port, then you have to deal with her. But if you ask her for any sort of code or the data to hold or show, she will say it is not my cup of tea. She only cares about configurations and nothing else. Now to compare it with Windows, Windows does not have a single etc directory. Instead, the same information exists across multiple locations like System32, the Windows Registry, hosts, and even the control panel. Each of them holds a piece of what Linux keeps in etc. In Windows, if we want to change system settings like the computer name, we use a graphical control panel. However, in Linux, we do the same thing by editing configuration files stored in etc. Now let's check what is inside etc directory by running our command. And as you could see, there are a lot of configuration files, which you might also see password here. But just to let you know that the password is not stored here, that it just holds the placeholder to show you that part. Let me just go ahead and run the command for that. As you could see, it is all gibberish and you could not read anything out of it because it is just a plain text which is not readable by a human. So this password file inside etc directory is just a placeholder for the real password. And the real password for the security reasons is not living here, but it is in a completely different file, which is the shadow, and that is readable only by Linux root. Now to show you one more example of the power of etc directory, let's just go ahead and try to change our host name. As we could see here, our hostname is Max, and we could just run the command for changing our hostname using etc directory. Let's just change it to something completely different. Let's change it to David. So we just Control O for confirming that, and then Control X for closing that. And let's just go ahead and run our command for completing it. So now we are done with it. Let's just go ahead and restart our terminal to see if our hostname is changed or not. As you could see, our hostname is changed already to David, but let's just go ahead and verify that once again. And you could see that our hostname or the system name is completely changed using the etc command. So you could play a lot with etc directory. If you're interested to learn more about it, you could check for the official documentation of etc directory and you could play with it. But just be careful that etc is a dangerous directory to be playing with, so make sure that whatever command you're running it, you know that what it does, or else it might even crash your system. Now talking more broadly than simple passwords and username changes, the etc directory controls critical system behavior. It defines networking rules, authentication settings, system startup behavior, and software configuration. That's why etc is one of the most important directories in Linux.